everybody, we're back. Today is Pluto in the third. I have moved yet again, as you can see, so I'm sorry it's a little bit bare, but whatever, I'm gonna get some more stuff in here over time. So to get started into the video, we're gonna do our little cookbook check-in interpretation. We have Pluto, which is the death to the rebirth cycle, so that transformation, the traumatic or intense catalyst that will catapult us into these transformations. Our intensity, things that we feel intense about, passionate about, things that we can become even obsessed with because we are so passionate. Things that are taboo, things that everybody knows about and a lot of people partake in, but you don't really talk about it on the surface. Things that are occult, paranormal, Scorpio, like that is Pluto. And then we have third house. So the third house is our communication, literally how we are speaking, the sound, the tone of my voice, the cadence, the accent that I may have, anything that aids or impedes my speech. If I have a lisp, stuff like that, the actual words I'm saying, the actual language that I'm speaking. It is also the news. We get our news from talking, so we're going to hear it through the airwaves, the radio, how we think on a conscious level. Thoughts that we are aware of, thoughts that we are actively putting together, like, hey, I need to be here at 10 a.m. How do I get there? Short distance travel around our neighborhoods. Also around our neighborhoods, we might find our siblings, our neighbors, and just, business owners, cashiers, stuff like that. And finally, our early childhood education. So I would say this goes to, I would say from when you enter school to about 12th grade. And that is their house. We have 3 celebrities that I feel like were super, super interesting because this placement really has some different manifestations that it can take. And so I try to find celebrities that manifest a different aspect of each. And I found Tucker Carlson really, really interesting. Martin Luther King Jr., I know those two are polar opposites, another really interesting one. And Marie Curie, she is a great example of Pluto in the third. When it comes to speaking, which is such a huge part of the third house, we ask the question, well, what are you talking about? We're talking about Pluto things, of course. Aliens and conspiracy theories and just weird little things that nobody else is really talking about. And it can come off sometimes as being a bit inappropriate. Maybe you're at work and you walk up to the water cooler and one of your coworkers who has Pluto in the third starts telling you about alien abductions or something in, the cow meat in Colorado. Sometimes a Pluto in the third house native, I think, thinks that they're being like edgy by talking about taboo things. And I get that because I'm a 12th houser with Pluto in the 12th, so I'm also talking about things that are taboo and occult. But at the same time, you really have to read the room and understand that maybe there's a reason why no one is talking about it right now. It could be morbid things like, oh, did you hear in the news, like, because Pluto's about death as well, that, mother and her newborn just got killed in a car accident this morning. You just better be like, no, I didn't hear about that, but I don't think that I wanted to. It's about reading the room before you speak. When I was researching this, someone said something that was pretty cool. They said these people like things that can't be proven right or wrong because it allows them to sort of go deeper and create their own narrative. And that's really about what this placement is about. Pluto in the third is about going deep into thinking about things. Why is this true? Let me dissect the media that's given to me, the news. If there's a news article written, I want to know who wrote it and a little bit about them. Let me dissect the information in this encyclopedia. Any information or intellect that's given to me, I want to be sure it's true. In the 1700s, they thought, if you take a bath, that was a bad thing. And if we all just kept accepting that, we may not be here today if it wasn't for somebody who would really challenge what the modern day status quo is when it comes to science and things that we think we know. You like to talk about psychological happenings, you like to talk about current events, usually the more controversial current events. And the lesson here is to delve deep. Of course, that's just who you are. It's what you're made to do, is to delve deep. But not to delve so deep into the point where you push past a certain barrier and then you're in a whole other territory. And I think we've all been there where you're researching something and you click on one video and it leads you to another and another. And pretty soon you're on like the weird side of YouTube or a odd side of Reddit. You're reading some weird Reddit article about something vaguely tangential to what you were initially talking about, but still so far left field. And you guys can really get into that stuff. Trying to figure out what to talk about is such a transformational inner process, because you'll ask yourself so many questions like, well, why can't I say this? Or why can't I talk about that? Or why can't I question that? What does it mean that other people don't seem to be questioning as deep as I am? What does it say about me that I am questioning things as deep as I am? Am I going too far? Are they not going far enough? What do I do if some of the things that I want to talk about people don't agree with? Or they are looking at me like I'm a little bit of an oddball? What do I do with that? Those are all questions that you have to answer because it's so vague. I don't know what you're talking about or who you're talking about it with. So I can't be there to tell you when and where. Nobody can. And that's just where it comes from you. It's like, who do I want to be? How do I figure out what words to use when I'm speaking to other people? You will learn a lot about yourself, and you may have some difficulties in the beginning, some awkward conversations, or sometimes where you just really didn't read the room, or you really, even if you read the room, you really just didn't understand why it wasn't well received. And I urge you to just go within yourself. Don't research, just go within yourself psychologically, because it's about psychology as well. And ask yourself, what am I trying to get? What do I want to get from other people when I start these conversations? Eventually, throughout the course of your life, whether it be early or later or whenever, you will, and you should, if you're doing the work, get to a point where you understand intuitively like what parts you want to speak about of life or your mind. You know, maybe like having some awkward Thanksgivings where you brought up something that wasn't the best to bring up. Maybe those times will be transformational. They may hurt you, but you can use them if you flip them, if you learn about yourself. When, what, how, where, and with who to speak about what. And so it's very interesting. How much are you talking with Pluto in the third house? I would say not a lot, because this is Scorpio. This is the planet that's ruling Scorpio. Until you get into something that you really care about, or until someone strikes that chord with you, you might be a bit more reticent with your speech. And then when you get fired up, then it's like, blah. Then it's that, you know, intensity and that excessiveness and that explosion, because it's all being channeled into one place, and then you effectively open Pandora's box. And that's not always necessarily bad. Sometimes people could learn to be quiet. I have a Saturn in the third, and I get that. So talking only when you feel passionate about something. And that's a beautiful thing, because you do get pretty passionate, that when you do start talking, you may have a tendency to want to steamroll people, especially if it's about a specific topic that you're fired up about, especially if you feel the people around you aren't as well educated or don't know enough about the topic. Similar to a Mars in the 9th house a little bit, people not agreeing, people seeming a little bit dumb, you are just... you want to catch them up to speed in a sense. And sharing the floor when you're communicating is an important skill as a human being. Sometimes people will feel, drawn in by the things that you are talking about and by your passion, because that's part of your gift, your passionate speech. And then you say, wow, I didn't know that. And you'll be like, and they'll be like, really? And then you go, no. So sometimes it's well received, and then I think there's other times where people simply don't want to go that deep into something. Maybe they've accepted something at face value, or maybe they've delved a little deeper and they agree with the news or the media or a book, and it's, you know, a nonfiction encyclopedia book that they're reading. Maybe they say, hey, this seems true. Somebody said it, I'm going to take it as truth. That may frustrate you at times, that they don't want to go deeper. But the lesson is, again, learning what to talk about and when and with who. If somebody's not interested in walking down a certain path with you, even if it's a verbal path, you can't grab them by the hand and drag them and make them come. So reading the room will be super important for you guys, a super important life lesson to learn that, hey, I think this person may not be super educated on this thing, and I'm really passionate about this thing. So, and understandably, it's bothering you. Like, it would bother any of us. It bothers me when people talk about astrology and they have no idea what they're talking about. It's just like, oh my God, I gotta walk away. So I get it. But at the same time, I can't say no, and the ascendant and the rising and the deacon, because some people, they just don't care. And you gotta let them have that, because they're individuals and that's who they are. When you can find peace when that happens, because it will happen, because it happens to everybody, then you know that your third house Pluto is evolving. So then there's your communication. What are you communicating? And that's a bit different from speech. Speech is how fast I'm talking, my words, the language that I'm using, that kind of stuff. My cadence. Your communication is the emotion that you impart on people with your words. And here we have Mr. Martin Luther King Jr., such a great example of a Pluto in the third. Most famous for his speech. What you communicate about is very, very important to you. So you don't just get up there and say the words and then that's it. You speak the words with passion. They come from your soul. The breaths that you take in between sentences, the way you pronounce the words, how you drag them out or shorten or stop them, the tone, the volume. You don't even just speak, you do the moves, you make eye contact, like you use words to sort of, it's like a snake charmer coming out of you when you're speaking, and you dazzle the people with it. When we have Martin Luther King, he didn't just say, hey everybody, I have a dream that there will be white kids and there'll be black kids and that they'll get along and that will be really great. Even though those words convey the same ideological message. He said, I have a dream. I'm not even gonna try to do it, but I have a bit of a cold, so my voice is not the best right now. He didn't just get up there and monotone say a speech. He imparted a vision of his for people, for America, with his words. And I think it's so amazing because that speech, the I Have a Dream speech, was delivered on August 28th, 1963. So we're coming up on, no, it's been 60 years. 60 years. And that speech is still quoted in the news today. It's one of the most famous speeches ever. Him and that speech and having Pluto in the third is like Mike Tyson, you know, knocking somebody out. It's what it does. Your words is like an atom bomb and an explosion, and it can be good or bad. And in this case, it was very good. And I just thought that was just such a great example of Pluto in the third house person. The next topic that we have is your mind and your intellect, not just your speaking, but what goes on up here before you start speaking. So your ideas and your thought processes are really incredible, very deep, and very transformational to you. And if you can find a way to unlock them, not only get them out, but take them, your ideas, and apply them as well with your actions, you can really change the world. So the deep probing mind that you have is similar to a Mercury in Scorpio. And then we have Marie Curie, who has this. So she was a Scorpio sun, but she also had Pluto in the third, and she discovered the elements. No, I don't want to get it wrong. radium, and polonium, which are used today to treat cancer patients with chemotherapy. The mind is digging. So she was a scientist, a researcher in a lab, digging so deep until we get deeper and deeper, until we get even to the atomic level, things that people may not feel as interesting enough or not have the patience enough to go deep with. But when you get that deep, sometimes the answer is that deep. Sometimes you have to go to an element, something that you've never heard of or can't even conceptualize, that we use every day today. And it's because of her probing mind. If she had stopped, if she had just accepted again the surface level or the status quo of what science was, we wouldn't have chemotherapy, which is one of the most effective treatments for cancer as far as I understand. So it's really true, like the devil lies in the details. Also makes you a very powerful detective. I feel like I say that for every placement, but Pluto anywhere prominently placed makes you a great detective because you're really good at the information here, getting it all right here. When you show up to like a murder scene, for example, you're really asking the who, the what, the when, the where, the why, but mostly you focus on the details, and it's very easy for you to catch a discrepancy. So I would think if you're in a relationship and someone's lying to you, or if your kids don't come home at the time, it might be very easy for you to pick up and say, hey, you said this at 8:02, and then you're very much in the present with the details. And that really helps you when you're trying to sleuth. I'd say you're probably extremely well read. You may have a massive collection of books, a little home library, and these books can be centered around things that are Plutonian, sexual, occult, stuff like that. And so make sure that you really channel this. So like I said, you're not one of those people that's just kind of ending up in some weird conspiracy theory rabbit hole on YouTube. Internet sleuthing. Make sure you have some sort of hobby in which you can research and dig and find articles and talk to other people about stuff that you want to dig about. It's really going to just let this passion inside of you have a chance to like be free and like breathe, and it can be done in a healthy way, and it's about something that you're conscious about rather than just like, again, the conspiracy theory rabbit hole sort of unproductive way that your mind can go, like a Tucker Carlson. Yeah, so he just needed a hobby. School can be very difficult for you for whatever reason, in Plutonian ways, and it really could be anything. If you have a sickness or, you know, problems at home or just problems in the school that just make your early on school experience something that you are not, something that's not super pleasant, and it really can bother you. I would say because this is so vast, it's really up to you to learn. I don't want to say to learn because you're probably a kid when some of these things are happening, but it's really up to you to try to separate the school and the mind and the intellect from the traumatic experience. Maybe you have a traumatic experience and you're not paying attention in school and your grades are going down, and that makes you feel like you're not smart. Separate and extricate the thing that is the pressure that Pluto is applying and what it means to have a mind and be intellectual and be in an early childhood learning educational environment. Separate them as much as you can. You may not be able to do so if something happens to you while you're very young and while you're in school, but with some therapy, when you can separate the experiences, I think you will find a confidence in yourself to next say, hey, whatever happened to me in those places at school or made school difficult wasn't my fault because I was a kid, and that is going to boost your confidence. When it comes to people, your neighbors, your siblings, and your cousins, people we see on our short journeys around town. You may have some conflicts with them. This can be, the bad neighbors example is pretty easy. They could be loud, they could be partying, they could be mean, they could be aggressive, they could be a lot of things that make you feel on edge. Siblings can be scorpionic, plutonic, maybe a bit bullying, and cousins as well. And this can be a bit hard because they are in your immediate environment. They may not always be in your house. Siblings may be, but your neighbors and your cousins, not always. But they'll be around. They're close enough to your house and close enough to your environment. And so you may, as you are unevolved, have some spats with them. and it may just be intense where they're doing stuff to you. You will usually perceive it as them doing things to you first. So I want to put that out there. But you will, with your Plutonian, with that Martian Scorpio energy, want to hit them back. And you go and you go and you go. And I think eventually your soul becomes a little tired. And you're like, hey, I don't want to fight with the person who lives next door or above me or in the room, you know, down the hall. I don't want to fight with my brother or my cousin, people that I see or at Thanksgiving or whatever. You can, but it will become tiring. So I think the lesson is to know that that intensity is there, and if you can move with maturity, I think you can get around the majority of situations. And if you can't, the only thing to do is to get away versus to try to sit there and continue to bicker, because it'll just drain the energy and it doesn't allow the Pluto to really be full and charged up to expand its passion the way that it wants to. If you are having any problems with these people, maintain your self-respect, maintain your boundaries, and just keep conflict to a minimum, and you should be able to keep your Pluto reserves full for the things that they're supposed to be full for. And I think eventually, when people can see you standing in your Pluto power, they'll start to respect you, and the Pluto can be a source of like, my neighbors know not to fuck with me. My brothers and sisters and my cousins know not to try me because I'm not playing around. Versus, because it's just unproductive. It's never productive. So keep that in mind if you are having problems, which you might, and try not to let it eat you up. I would say meditate or do what you have to do to kind of let that steam out, because the more animosity you have from them, it's like an unconscious sort of little Molotov cocktail in the air that doesn't do good. So hobbies, I think there are a bunch of different ways that you guys can get this intellectual energy out. It's not always so much physical, like some of the other placements, like a Pluto in the 8th or Pluto in the 5th. This is more like, I really had to think about how you would channel this. So I got a couple ideas for hobbies for you guys. You can tell me if you do them or if you've started them and how you feel about them. One is writing or communication. Writing a book for you guys unequivocally. Having a blog, a vlog, stuff like that where you get to really nerd out and talk about the things you want. A forum or some type of internet community where you're exchanging intellect with other people who are just as interested about your niche topic as you. Or even a diary, just something that you're writing, something that you're using your words. It doesn't have to be something you share. And it can be all of those things. Investigating. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the Netflix documentary Don't F with Cats, but it was amazing. Doing something where you're investigating. You don't have to be an investigator, but you can investigate certain things in your local town, calling up your, local city council people or whatever and asking, hey, what about this or what about that, is for you. I would say like erotic literature, I think it's called, smut or whatever. Conversations about sexuality, podcasts about sexuality is really up your alley, and it gives you that chance to get that scorpion edge and that Pluto out with your words and all that. The mix of the verbal and the Pluto and the Scorpio. I would say those kind of books, even, just reading a Zane book at night or whatever, really might do something for you. Lastly, comedy. Just listen to some comedy specials, doing some stand-up here and there, like an open mic night. Someone suggested this on the Linda Land forum, and they said it was important for them and it helped them being a third house Pluto native, because it allowed a balance of the light and the dark, because your mind can be so dark and it can be delving so deep and going into all these rabbit holes. It's so suspicious. You can be so suspicious sometimes. And so to just have some comedy and to laugh can really balance out all that, digging and suspicion and, trying to bat things, delve deeper, that thing that we all try to do with our Pluto. So I was like, that's actually a really unintuitive but like good suggestion. I really like that. Get to a comedy show every once in a while, go outside, touch some grass, feel the sun, and just take a pause, give your mind a break for a while. And I would say maybe a 10-minute a night or even a 5-minute a night meditation can really help quiet down your mind as it goes and goes and goes, because it can tend to do that. And randomly, I just thought of a Netflix show recommendations called The Watcher, based on a true story. Somebody sending stalking notes to their new neighbors. I thought that was such a great third house Pluto show recommendation, and it was just a great show in general, and it's on Netflix. So you guys, that was Pluto in the third. Interesting. I felt like I had to try to be good with my words as I said this. And yeah, I have Saturn in the third, so it was a bit of a struggle, but this was a good one. A lot of powerful people here, powerful mind, powerful thoughts. So yeah, this was a very interesting placement. So please drop down below, tell me what you think about the video and stuff like that, and I will see you guys in the next video for Pluto in a second.